this meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed or communicated on other media platforms. Recording this meeting will be made available on Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance to make it full use and to speak clearly into the microphones available at all times. Reminder that mobile phones should be turned off or put on silent mode. Those that are present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. Okay, thank you. So, I should forgive me tonight. It's the first time I've wanted to use one of these things chairing a meeting. So, you know, those who know me know I'm used to a quill pen. Change to one of these things is a bit of a steep learning curve for me. So, we'll start with apologies.
Councillor Linda Broadley.
Apologies for absence have been received by Councillor Linda Broadley and Jeffrey Dawson.
Okay, thank you.
As you've sent me an email, tell me.
Any substitutes?
Councillor Lassie substituted for Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman.
Thank you. Declaration of interest. Any interest to declare? No. This previous meeting, you'll wish I signed as a true and accurate record of the previous meeting. Those who are here. Thank you. Action list from the last meeting.
That's none.
Petitions and deputations.
That's none.
Right. Corporate performance update, pages 8 to 59. Mrs. Hatton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I'm here to present an update on the corporate performance for Q4 22-23. This report contains KPIs which relate to continuous improvement in line with our corporate plan of 2019 to 2024 and our statutory KPIs that have to be delivered as our business as usual. There are 44 continuous improvement KPIs. 40 of these are due to be reported at Q4 for 22-23. For 24 statutory KPIs, 21 of those are due to be reported for Q4 22-23. For both our continuous improvements and our statutory KPIs, the indicators are categorised by each objective and each of our service delivery lines. Each target has been graded red, amber or green as a status of a ranking system. There are two other ranks, blue for indicators where work has not been yet to begin, and white for things outside of the council's control for delivery, and therefore cannot be ranked. I would like now to refer members to the corporate performance section 2.4 in the report, where I will go through the continuous improvement KPIs first. So out of the 44 indicators, 40, as I said, are due to be reported now at Q4. 40 out of the 40, 38 were green status, 1 was an amber status, and 1 was a red status. That equates to 94% green, 3% amber, and 3% red. In comparison to Q3 for October, November, and December 22-23, our percentages were 90% green, 10% amber, and 0% red. So when we look at the continuous improvements KPIs under our corporate objectives, we can see in the charts on the report that 9 KPIs are green and on target. 1 KPI was red for building, protecting and empowering our communities. 4 KPIs for growing the borough economically, all green. 25 KPIs were green and 1 amber for providing excellent services. When we look at these by department, we can see that all 12 KPIs were green for built environment, 7 KPIs were green and 1 was red for customer service and transformation. All 10 KPIs were green for finance and resources. 9 KPIs were green and 1 KPI was amber for law and democracy. Moving on to the statutory key performance indicators, out of the 24, 21 were due to be reported in Q4 of 22-23. And out of those 21, 19 were green, no amber statuses at all, and 2 red statuses. So that equates to 90% green, 0% amber, and 10% red. If we compare that to Q3 of 22-23, October, November and December, percentages were 89% green, 11 amber and 0% red status. So when we look at those under our corporate objectives, all 5 KPIs were green for building, protecting and empowering communities. There are no statutory KPIs for growing the borough economically. 14 KPIs were green and 2 KPIs were red for providing excellent services. When we move to look at these by department, we can see all 10 KPIs were green for built environment. There are no statutory KPIs for customer service and transformation. 3 KPIs were green and 2 were red for finance and resources, and all 6 KPIs were green for law and democracy. Chair, if I can now hand back to you to take members through any of the exceptional reporting and the appendices. If there are any questions, myself or the relevant head service will be happy to answer these.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, congratulations, well done on meeting a lot of your KPI indicators. Just a quick question on page 11, where we're talking about the finance. With regards to the targets, on Q4, I'm just talking about the table that gives us the percentages. We missed the first target of 1.51% and 1.85%. And I'm just wondering, how much is that in terms of money? In terms of percentage, we've got it there, but what is it in terms of actual financial value?
Mrs. Ball, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, sorry, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll take that one. So in terms of, so when you're looking at the council tax, against the target, we're 0.64% short. So I can give you that in terms of equates to. So in terms of council tax, that's £135,000 reduction in income or income. That obviously we're agreeing on what she's affecting not just on behalf of myself, but on behalf of the 3 sectors as well. So actually about 12% of that works out, it's actually been our income. So that equates to just under £28,000. In terms of business rates, so again, there's a 2.26% difference under our target. So that equates to £280,000, which our share of that's 40%, so it's £112,000 into business rates.
What impact is that having on our revenues account in terms of the deficit that we've got that we're trying to reduce?
In terms of the collection rate, it impacts in terms of that debt's at a high level, so we therefore have to provide for that in terms of our debt provision. So we'd increase or review our bad debt provision and potentially, because our debtors are higher, we'd increase that level of provision that's there, which would actually reduce the level of income projected into the revenue account. Our share of it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. How do we compare with other districts? That's more to the point. Are we all suffering the same degree of difficulty collecting the council tax in and NDR? Or are we
In a worse position than anybody else?
Across the Leicestershire authorities, I have got that information. It does vary. There are some that are performing in better than us, and there's some where we are around the same level as we are, so they are overachieving the target. I mean, varying things can impact, especially like in terms of business rates, which is our lower one, because ultimately if you're an authority where you've got large sort of multinational businesses, it's obviously easier to collect because they pay those bills in time, whereas when you've got smaller businesses, they're more likely to default.
So we'll be aiming to collect better on the NDR business rates, going to where we are improving on that.
Yeah, I mean, we are making progress on it, and obviously we've got an action plan in place going forward, and I think we reported previously. Obviously, it will take time for those actions to get embedded and then through, link through into the actual collection rates, and so that we are actually achieving our targets.
Mrs Hack?
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate that point, I did ask the same question and I was told that we are making continuous improvement and we have recruited a senior Revs and Bends officer and we should hopefully be on target, should be on our way to meeting the target. And as Bev has mentioned, it is extremely difficult as we've come out the pandemic and you have to strike the right balance between when we're collecting our LNDRs, the right balance between sending a business down and collecting the money, collecting the revenue that we need to collect. So as long as we are making the right progress and we are on the right track, compared to other authorities, improvements are made and we are on the right track. That's what it matters. Thank you.
Mr Gore?
Thank you, Chair. Turn this on.
Thank you, Chair. I've got an observation and then a question in respect of corporate objective PES 17, which is on page 12. I've gone back and looked at the corporate plan on the council's website, and this was described as facilitate migration to paperless committees with a target date of migration by March 2020. We're now in June 2023, so in simple terms, this would appear to be 3 years overdue. But it's described as amber. How late does it have to be before it goes red? Please.
Who's going to start with, Mr Gill or Mrs Fisher?
I think Mrs Fisher has deferred to me, Chair. Thank you, Mrs Fisher. The position is that we did introduce the process back in 2020 and the majority of members are paperless. We have currently just issued new IT equipment to officers and to members and the plan is that hopefully once we move into Brox Hill then all of the committees will be paperless. As a matter of course now do not issue paper copies of documents unless there is a specific reason that it's required, perhaps for a disability, somebody that may be short-sighted or has difficulty reading. So we accept that it's something that has been outstanding and without wishing to be rude or point fingers, of course, the move to paperless committees is in many ways reliant on the members and for members to grasp and embrace that approach.
Question?
Yes, if I can come back on that because I don't think that fully answers my question. The original target date was March 20. It's now 3 years after that, but it's described as amber. So how late do things have to be before they go red? And why is this amber rather than red?
It's amber in part because one of the reasons that we've not been able to fully implement it is because of the demands on the service. It is a work in progress. It's not a work that has come to a halt. We've had to have software upgrades, etc., to put onto the system to make it workable. You'll see from the second part of that commentary on page 13 that certainly for the last quarter and the quarter before that, there was an emphasis on ensuring that we were delivering on the election. We have had staff changes in the interim. We lost the Democratic Services manager back in 22. We had to replace. So there are a whole combination of factors. I'm more than happy if you want to change it to red, to be quite honest. At the end of the day, amber red is of not particular significance to me. But, you know, as I've said, we will Officers have been seeking to make sure that this has occurred, but it involves the commitment of everybody involved in the committee process to make sure that it happens. Lee raised his hand.
I think Colin's got a question, have you?
No, I don't see it as amber. I do see it as red. I think amber is being generous, and I don't know enough about the original corporate plan to know whether you're equally generous in your other judgments in respect of being red and amber. But you know, I've made my point, Chair. So thank you,
Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy with it being amber. It's a work in progress, it's just been explained. It's an ongoing process. It does take everybody's involvement, and I know for a fact you will never get everybody's involvement because there are certain factors involved that will stop this from happening 100%. So it's an ongoing thing. If we just have it at red because one person's got one piece of paper, then we'll always have it at red. It's a work in progress. It's continuing. We want people to input into it. We want people to give their opinions. And if people need some paper copies for certain reasons, then I'm quite happy for them to have them. So personally, I'm quite happy with it to be amber. And I think the officers are doing a very good job in keeping it amber and not making it go red. There are massive amounts of factors involved here that is keeping it amber and not turning it green. Green is an ambition. It's like being completely CO2 neutral. It's an ambition. It'll never actually happen. Basically because we're all human beings and we're CO2 producing machines. So what are you going to do? Get rid of us all and plant trees in this place? It's just an ongoing thing. So amber is quite satisfactory, but we need to continue with the work.
Yeah. Okay. Question from me. The 5.1, the recycling rate. This is Mrs. Fisher one, I believe, is it not?
It is, Chair.
Okay. We're below our target of 45% through factors, I think, outside our control, because we're dictated to what we can collect and what we can't collect now. And I think all councils, apart from North West Leicester, are in the same situation. We all take it to the same end user, apart from North West Leicester, who were allowed to keep their own recycling plant where we weren't. And that affected our budget by around £200,000 a year. So are we looking at what we can do to improve our recycling rates?
Chair, yes, we are. One of the things that we consistently do is look at how we can increase those. One of the KPIs going forward for 23-24 is to run pop-up centres and awareness sessions regarding recycling, and the team from the county come along and work with our refuse and recycling teams and attend residents' forums and various other meetings across the borough to actually raise awareness around that.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the recycling, it's all been well doing training sessions for residents, but if case pack is the end the team recycling it and not recycling everything we give them, or the other others in the UK can recycle, what are we doing about that?
Mrs. Fisher?
Thank you for that question. We have regular quarterly reviews with Case Pack to look for ways to actually increase our recycling rates. So the relationship there is being built and continues to be built to actually work on that specific area. And actually, clearly, we are led by council as well. So there is a challenge around that. But from a point of view, we have regular meetings with Case Pack to discuss recycling in particular.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs Hack?
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, going back to going paperless and that target being amber. I do recall this coming up in a previous meeting, possibly last year, and it was mentioned that we should change the target that we aspire to achieve, or going paperless. And so that way it's not always red or amber, or that can be debated. As Councillor Bentley has mentioned, that even if one person asks or has a paper copy, that will always be in red. So maybe we need to change what we want to achieve and change the wording around that, so we're not setting ourselves to fail. And my second question, Mr. Fisher, you mentioned educating and going to, regarding recycling, going to the town centre forum. Do we do anything like educating the school kids or going into school? Because that starts, all that sort of education should start at a young age. And nowadays, kids do educate their parents as well. So do we do anything like that?
At this moment in time, we don't, but that is part of our plan in 23-24 to look at school information programme as well.
Thank you.
No further questions on this bit? No? So we're asked to note the report. Yes, we're going to do the appendix then, but we're happy where we are so far. Yes?
Yes.
Right, then we'll move on then to page 14. Get there. Right, page 14, planning. Mr Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any particular comments to point out to members this evening, other than what is written in the report, but I'll happily take any questions if there are any.
Any questions, Mr Thorpe? No? Okay. We'll move on to the next bit, which is also Mr Thorpe, economic regeneration.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
No questions? Okay. Move on to the next one, which is homeless management, which is Mr Thorpe again.
Thank you, Chair. Another update in terms of the housing section, and I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Right, Mr Bentley.
Just a quick one, Chair, regarding homelessness. It's obviously going up as more hardship comes down on people. Can we be assured that we are in a position where we are going to be able to accommodate all the homeless people that are coming to us? And if not, is there any form of additional revenue that the government can give councils to assist people who are becoming homeless through no fault of their own?
Mr Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. What I can assure you is that currently we're able to accommodate everybody that presents homeless to us, and we will obviously continue to do so because we have a duty to do that. The council gets a grant from the government annually towards the cost of that, and it does fluctuate depending on what level of homelessness there is across the country, and we obviously use against that grant, and obviously would need to spend additional if there was a massive increase in homelessness. But currently we're able to cover it within our means. And also, as the report said, in terms of recovering costs, we've actually done very well over the last year in doing that and recovering the cost back to the council.
Thank you.
Okay. It is going up. It is a difficult problem. And of course, we try not to use bed and breakfast accommodation, but unfortunately we're in a situation where we have no choice very often. But there is a limit the government put on length of time people can stay in bed and breakfast accommodation. So that's another pressure that we're under to move people on and try and work with private landlords wherever possible. Mrs. Hack?
So question along similar lines, as it clearly going up, do we have a long-term plan and do we have sufficient facilities to accommodate those people who become homeless?
Mr. Thorpe?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Clearly, we use the accommodation that we have available to us. If necessary, we can use some of our housing stock that becomes vacant. Obviously, we aim not to do that because then we're losing income from putting people in tenancies. And of course, we can use bed and breakfast accommodation too, which again, we certainly try and avoid, particularly as far as families are concerned, because we don't have families in bed and breakfast accommodation. We also have the hostel, of course, which the council uses and owns and houses homeless people too. So we use all options that are available to us, and we try and use the options that are most appropriate for the particular presenting homelessness to us, and we obviously try and make sure that they're housed in appropriate accommodation.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. In part, you just about answered my question, and I was about to ask that whether or not we could use some of the voids and couple that with the homelessness and looking at the 25 days on average that we've got for it, whether or not we have actually accommodated anybody within some of our housing stock. Has that actually been done?
Yes. So,
yes, it has been done in the past, and as I said, we've actually managed to reduce that because when we do that, we lose income. The other thing I will add is that over the forthcoming year, we'll be looking to update and review our homelessness strategy. So obviously, some of the things that members are pointing out tonight in terms of increase in homelessness, we'll be taking that into account through the review of the strategy and how we respond to that, and we'll involve members in that process, of course, as well.
any further questions on that bit? No? We'll move on then. We jump in a bit. Yeah. Got void property management, that's Mr. Thorpe again. Do you want to ask any questions on that? I'm concerned about the length of time taken to relet some of these properties. I hope that can be rectified in the very near future. Take note. Mrs. Hack.
Chair, just a quick question regarding the void property. The question was asked whether we use those properties for homelessness. Is that correct, that you can use them whilst they're empty and work needs to be done, or do we have to wait until they're fully ready?
Mr. Thorpe, you want me to answer that or you want to answer it?
Well, I'll start, and Chair, maybe you can add if you wish to. We don't use void properties to house homeless families whilst there's work going on. So we will take them out of the supply, if you like, and use them to house homeless families, and then we'll put them back into the supply at an appropriate time. But that's something that might come out of the sort, because when we do that, we're not getting income into the council as we would do through rent, so we're using rent income.
It's a very careful balancing act, because what you've got a number of people on the waiting list. If you use all the accommodation for people who are homeless, people are on waiting list for even longer. So it's a very difficult balancing act to achieve. So it's officers work very hard on that, trying to keep everything down. Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. As the average void time is quite high compared to what we want it to be, is there any specific reason why it's gone that high? Has the previous contractor not performed? And are we going to be assured that the new contractor is going to perform to get us back down to the time that we want?
Mr. Thorpe, want to answer that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've used different means of undertaking void work in the past. We've not had it all under one contract, which, as the report says, since January 2023 has been the case. So we're working very closely and very well with the new contractor. And we believe that this will help us to bring the void rate down even further over the forthcoming year.
And that be reported back, the progress being made, Chair?
Yes.
That it's being controlled and that time is coming down?
Yes.
Obviously, it has quite an impact on our income.
Yeah, I'm also going to ask that for the next meeting as a target, that we want to benchmark what we're paying for replacement kitchens and bathrooms at the present time to what we've paid in the past, and also the clearance of void properties. Those who have not been on committee before perhaps don't realise that when a lot of our tenants leave a property, it may not be as one would desire it to be.
Rushed.
Some leave an awful lot of property in the houses. Some, unfortunately, do some damage to the property, particularly on the doors and windows, which we do our best to recharge to them. But of course, all the damage that's been done takes more time to replace these things. And of course, at the moment, some of the materials are difficult to source because they're all in short supply. So there's a shortage, there's a problem there. But I'm sure that we can have some benchmarking for the next meeting to see where we're going price-wise. Right, moving on, income management. Mrs. Bull?
This is housing. This is
Oh,
housing.
sorry, it's all housing, sorry. Mr. Thorpe still?
Nothing to add to what's in the report other than to say that we've made good progress in terms of income management over the last year and our income has increased significantly.
Any questions? No? Maybe one light bulb? Can you just explain what light bulb does, Mr. Thorpe, please, so members perhaps don't know?
Yes, Chair, of course. So Lightbulb is a delegated service to Blaby District Council, which ourselves and the majority of other Leicestershire District Councils delegate. It relates to disabled facilities grants primarily in terms of providing grants and support for people that need adaptations to their home in order to be able to live perhaps when they've come out of hospital as they grow older. But the Lightbulb initiative also covers a number of other areas as well, such as the Home Gadgets project, which is set out in the report, also a hoarding project as well to assist people who are hoarders. So a number of really positive projects coming out of Lightbulb. Also, just to add that in terms of funding for Lightbulb, the council receives disabled facility grant funding from government, which it then passes over to Blaby District Council, as I say, because they run the service on behalf of the council, but all of the costs are fully funded by that grant from government.
The way the system works, the government allocate the money to the county council, then divvy it out to the districts, and it's all moved forward to the districts. None is kept by the county. Yes. Any other questions on that at all? Lightbulb? No. We may have some people from Lightbulb can give a presentation at a future meeting so that members know what they're up to. Be useful. Right. Got home gadget night. Okay. Revs and bends. Got it right this time.
Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions. Revs and bends section.
Are there any questions at all? Mrs. Bull, no? No? Right. So you answered the question about collection rates and all the rest of properties. Customer services and transformation then. That's Miss Hatton, I believe, is it not?
It is indeed, Chair. Thank you very much. Again, nothing extra to add, but I'm happy to take a question from members on APA.
Any questions at all? No? Oh. Right. Okay. What about social media? Anyone want to ask any questions on the social media bit on page 22? No? No question about the IT team?
Chair, can I just...
Mrs. Hack?
The social media, are we just talking about Facebook and our Instagram account, or do we have a presence on other platforms as well? And what do we do to increase number of followers or?
So in the report itself, it's just giving the stats there on Facebook and on Twitter, which are our two main primary ones. We do have a LinkedIn and we do have an Instagram, but they're not very active, not through trying, but they are LinkedIn in terms of advertising recruitment, things like that. We're able to get people looking at that there. But the nature of LinkedIn is more people, business partnerships that can't interact there. In terms of Instagram, it just hasn't picked up a big following at all, and that's the same with other councils as well. So generally speaking, it's Twitter and Facebook have got our primary focus, although we have made attempts with the other ones. In terms of attracting more people to them, it's a never-ending task, if I'm honest. It can vary month to month. You can see we're increasing in some areas, we're decreasing in others. It's promotion of what we're doing in the borough events. Different things that are happening across the borough. So we're constantly trying to promote different things to attract different types of people. So that's kind of the promotion side of things. And you'll find that, a particular thing, for example, when the Queen sadly passed away, we got a rush of followers there because people didn't want to know what was going on in the borough, King's coronation, things like that. You'll find you get a bit of an increase when these sort of things happen. So we try and take advantage of big things nationally that are going on to try and promote and get more followers. We do advertise them on the website, we do advertise it in other ways as well. But again, social media is generally people finding their way to it. And if they're interested in you, they will follow you, they'll like posts, etc.
Okay.
Just very quickly, do you know in terms of age profile that what kind of audience we're attracting?
And that isn't information I've got today, but I will see if there's something we can get from the demographics. Definitely we can get the stats of it, but whether or not we have the information of age group or what have you behind it, I don't actually know, but I will look into that and find out for you. I'm guessing it might be unlikely that we get that data, and also you've got to think that some of that data wouldn't be 100% accurate. There's age groups on Facebook and Twitter, so younger people obviously will lie about their ages, etc. But I will find out if we have that information for you.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. Not being one that uses social media too much, except putting pictures of my newly painted decking on Facebook when just before the rain came down yesterday, which was lovely. My wife's more into it, and I know that there are little groups around the area that use WhatsApp, and they seem to be very quick at responding on that sort of platform. Do we use anything like that? Because they put messages out to each other and the reactions coming back are extremely quick.
So WhatsApp is something that we've used and utilised in the community wellbeing team. So amongst our activity groups, WhatsApp is used in that terms of keeping in contact with people that are doing a couch 5K, we're all in the group, everybody's communicating about different things, etc., encouraging each other. and we found it to be effective there. We haven't looked at using it for anything else. There's difficulties in using it for that purpose, on a mass. It'd be unlikely that many people would want their personal phone numbers, en masse being put out there, to comment on something. So that's why Facebook and Twitter, I suppose, offer a little bit more anonymity. So I think that you would find that you wouldn't get many people wanting to join like an OWBC WhatsApp group. But obviously we do use the email facility, the Gov delivery, in terms of getting messages out in an electronic version. But as I say, we do use WhatsApp, it's generally to smaller groups of people, sometimes up to 100, 200 people. But again, they all have to consent to obviously only able to look up their phone number, etc. So there's some difficulties, which is why we don't explore.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering in regards to social media, how we're managing feedback from residents in regards to comments and stuff like that. I see sometimes we're very quick to react, maybe with pointing someone in the right direction. Other posts just left blank. Are we reporting these? Obviously, Facebook, Twitter, sometimes it's very hateful. But sometimes the genuine comments, and I see them ignored or answered once, but then the other person may not have seen the comment. And there's many other community groups on social media, Spotted Winston, Spotted Winston. Are we monitoring them to see, problems before potentially getting reported to the council? Like, for example, today I saw fly tipping on the post. Are we monitoring that and reacting to it?
So I'll answer your first question in regards to the interactions and the comments. It's a challenge, I'll be honest, in social media. The way in which we approach it, our communications team, during working hours generally, will be the ones to respond to residents if they've got an inquiry on there or a comment or what have you. We never remove negative comments, that's good practice actually, just to be very transparent. If people are having negative things to say, it's not good practice to delete that. Obviously, if it was offensive, we would then look at reporting that and doing the appropriate steps. But if it's generally just something not liking something we've done as the council policy decision, etc., we would leave that unanswered. It's generally not good to fuel the fire by responding to lots of things. So again, communications team is trained them able to know what you should respond to, what you don't respond to. Thankfully, sometimes residents help out by responding to each other and correcting some mistruths that are sometimes put on there. But it is a challenge, there's no two ways about it. In terms of an inquiry, the person will be direct messaged generally, and particularly if it's contentious. If it was somebody just saying, how do I report fly tipping, then we would say, you can use this form, or you can this page on the website, or ring customer services. That would be a generic response. It was how do I find out about single person discount because I'm in this situation? We would want to remove that from the public arena and turn that into direct messaging. So you won't see responses on there sometimes, but that doesn't necessarily mean an officer hasn't actually directly contacted the customer. But in terms of bad comments and what have you, again, as I say, best practice standard would not be to get into a debate or an argument. If we can correct information, it's incorrect, we do that, but there's a balancing act how we do that. The second question, just remind me what that was now, so it's a long answer, apologies.
Sorry. It was in regards to the community groups like Spotted.
Yes, so they are monitored in terms of when we have capacity, if I'm honest, because you could spend your whole life looking at all three of them. They are very interesting and eye-opening. But yes, we do monitor them. And obviously if something is a particularly contentious or hot thing that's going on, we will tell relevant areas. We will think about how that maybe looks and if there's anything we can do to make things look more positive. But we don't go on there and say, if you're having this issue, do this. And that's purpose. We choose not to, because again, we want people, if they want to interact with us on social media, we need to keep that restricted to our channels. So we don't want to get into a position where we don't have the resources to get in a position where we would respond to customer inquiries on Spotted.
As long as it's being monitored,
It's being
we're aware of the problem.
Proactively react to things sometimes, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, refuse and recycling, any questions on that? No. Move on to Law and Democracy. Mr Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Given the breadth of the report and the different areas it's covered, I don't propose to go through it in detail. I'm happy to take any questions from members on each of the sections. So starting with environmental health, if anybody's got any questions on that. I'll pass to you, Chair, to take members through the rest of the report.
Okay. Private sector housing? No questions? Empty homes? Social housing decarbonisation programme, that's a very big programme to do that, which Mr Thorpe will be reporting on the next meeting how far we've got with it. Ongoing service licensing. No questions? Community lottery. I'd like to be reported at the next meeting on that, how far we've gone with it and what's happened.
Yeah, the launch was last week and the first tickets are being sold shortly, and I think it's week commencing the 7th of July will be the first draw. So we can report back on the success of that at the next meeting.
Okay. Corporate assets. I noticed in the report we had a problem with one of the graves not being right size. Would you like to tell us what happened there?
Certainly, Chair. The grave in question, or sorry, the deceased in question was of Caribbean origin, and the normal course of events is that they have much larger caskets, whereas we have, put it bluntly, the normal square coffin shaped, which is generally used. The ones that are used tend to be much more decorative and much more rounded. And unfortunately, between the undertaker and the officer, there was a breakdown in communication indicating to us that the appropriate, or what the size of the casket was. What I can say is that on the day that the matter happened, the sexton at that time, Mr. Seeley, who's since retired, was on site. He did know the family. He did manage to resolve the matter there and then, and it was only sometime after that the complaint came in as a result of further contact between officers at the council and the deceased family. It was just an unfortunate error. It wasn't recognised that this particular undertaker dealt with a lot of Caribbean funerals, and the officer just didn't think to connect the two. But we did resolve the matter rapidly and to everybody's satisfaction.
We've got some forms that they use for make sure the graves are the right size. So you drop the form down. If it drops down, that's fine. If it doesn't, you alter it so that it does. I bet we've not got a form for these special coffins.
No, we don't. So it's just a matter of experience. Mr. Seeley did manage to resolve the matter really quickly, to everybody's satisfaction.
Okay, Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Chair. I will just say that he will be missed. Very nice gentleman. Talked to him an awful lot. Cemetery, Wixton Cemetery. I do walk around that place quite a lot. I have 4 of my family members residing there. I'm becoming more and more concerned about the condition of the cemetery. It seems to be being let go. I know the grass gets cut, not as often as I would like, but it seems that they don't cut round the gravestones anymore, so there's lots and lots of grass sticking up all over the place. When they trim the bushes, All the branches and leaves are just left across the graves. There's been a pile of muck in the middle of the grass for months now. The compound seems to be jam-packed full of rubbish. Now, I will say I've not been there for the past 4 days because I've been away, so things might have changed. But that stuff in that compound, especially when the wind gets up, blows all over the cemetery. This is a place of peace, reflection, and should be kept in a good condition. Residents are basically having to go and cut the grass themselves to a decent standard. I honestly believe that we should be doing more to keep the cemeteries in good condition. I do not go to Oby Cemetery, but I believe I've been told that it's in a worse condition. I can't verify that. But can we be assured that the resources we need are going to be put into the cemeteries to put them back how they used to be pre-COVID? Because then they used to be in extremely good condition and were kept so.
Mr Gill.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say that I agree with every comment that you've made, Councillor Bentley. The reality is that up until a number of years ago, there were 7 operatives working in the cemeteries. We are now down to 2. They endeavoured to do their best. As you appreciate, one of them had a period of sickness, back injury, which is obviously caused through his work. When that happens, we do try and cover by taking people off the grounds maintenance team and putting them in. We obviously lost Mr. Seeley. There was a period of time when we were actually down to 1 person. We have taken on 2 new members in the Clean and Green team, and one of those has been allocated to support the cemeteries. With regard to the compound, we're fully aware that there is an issue with the compound, and before I went on my annual leave, I made arrangements for the compound to be cleared. I came back and received an email today. I won't describe what the officer said about the company that we lined up to do the work, but it wasn't very complimentary, and the position is that the compound still hasn't been cleared, and we have got another arrangement in place for that to take place next week. In terms of the grass cutting, we do have a cycle of grass cutting. Unfortunately, the weather this year has been perfect growing weather for grass. It has been warm and it has been wet. I've had to mow my garden 2 or 3 times a week, and you know, as soon as the officers have done one part, you know, the other parts are growing. There has been some issues around the maintenance of the mowers. One of the particular mowers that is used around the gravestones has been out of action. It's not been working. So I fully accept all of the comments that you're making. I have discussed the matter with the corporate assets manager. We will, in all probability, be putting forward some capital bids later in the year because we recognise that there is an issue and that we need to address it. But at the moment, without a budget for it and without staff, it is becoming difficult. So we will be addressing that to see exactly what is needed, and then we'll be coming to members and asking for member support to help us bring the cemeteries back to what they should be.
I'll come back, Chair.
Yes.
Do we do any form of enticing volunteers onto the cemetery? I know there's problems with possible damage to people's graves, gravestones, etc. But surely we could look at relaxing any restrictions and allowing some nice-minded residents and possibly members to be able to go into the cemeteries and help start clearing them up if it's such a problem.
I'm happy to explore every opportunity. I'm aware that when we go to Brox Hill, there will be some volunteering work taking place, and the staff are going to be encouraged to undertake volunteering, outside of their normal working hours. I mean, I would have no objection to taking the streamer down to the cemetery and spending a couple of hours. I will need to discuss it with the health and safety officer to make sure that we can actually be somewhat flexible around the health and safety requirements, whilst at the same time ensuring that there is no danger being caused. But I'll certainly look at that, Councillor Bentley.
As Mr Gill will tell you, I'm a regular visitor and a thorn in his side over that.
Yes.
Okay. Particularly the children's little area, I was most disappointed with that. I went again yesterday and inspected it, and it's 90% there now, not 90% there. So there's an improvement, but I do go up there quite a bit. I also go to Oakley Cemetery, and I agree with what Mr Bentley says. It needs a bit of attention. All right? Okay, Mr Allen, I think.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that Oakley Mosque approached the council to ask whether there could be allotted any graveyard spaces. What's been the update on that?
As I understand it, that's still an ongoing discussion between the corporate assets manager and the people from the mosque. If we did go down that route, we have to be somewhat careful in the sense that we would have to realign the graves to make sure that they face the appropriate direction, and also we have to bear in mind that the graveyards themselves have a limited timescale. And I think we estimate about 10 years. So if we were to set off a large area to one side, that would then impact on the viability or the longevity of the graveyard. And that might then prompt us to have to start looking for an additional grave site somewhere in the borough or an extension to the grave sites that we've already got.
And if I can come back, Chair, just picking up on Councillor Bentley's point about volunteers. I'll probably say that a lot of the worship, the faith groups who are quite active in the area, they're probably might be interested in helping out and supporting at the cemeteries if they're all approached as well.
As I said, I'm happy to explore that, but we just need to make sure that the health and safety considerations are addressed before we invite people into the cemeteries, and certainly coming in and using power equipment. We just need to make sure that everything's covered off.
Bit of information. I hope that my information is correct. The new bins for Bell Street will be going in very shortly. The bases are in now. The new bins will be following very shortly. When they are in, the old bins will be taken out. So that's in progress. Mrs Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question regarding the Clean and Green team. And I do note that a member of staff has been on long-term sickness. Just want to ask, has that been resolved now? I know there was a proud tradition of being clean and green, and standards have slipped recently. But the member's been reassured that all that has been resolved.
Yes, Councillor, the position with the member of staff on long-term sickness is that he actually reaches statutory retirement age next month, and he will be leaving the authority. We've already authorised the recruitment of a replacement. As I previously mentioned, we have employed 2 new members of staff. We had 2 vacancies on the books for a long time, one on grounds maintenance and one on the Clean and Green team. There is a new package of training that has been approved very recently for the team to make sure that they're all fully competent in their appropriate areas. One of the strange things, I inherited this team, as you appreciate, only last year, but a number of the staff that we employ do not drive, which causes a problem when we have people that are drivers that are on long-term sick, such as the mini sweeper driver, which causes a considerable problem. So we are looking at trying to upskill all of the staff to make sure that we have the flexibility and the ability to move them from clean to green and vice versa, provide cover at the cemeteries and so forth. So the other thing in there is we've also appointed a Clean and Green team supervisor So whereas previously there was a corporate assets manager and an assistant corporate assets manager, the corporate assets manager, as you all may well know, took flexible retirement. The assistant corporate assets manager moved up to the assets manager, and we have now put in this team supervisor who deals with the day-to-day management. So if you contact us with a service request for a bin to be emptied or something to be done at the cemeteries, it will not go to the manager, it will go to the supervisor, who will then allocate it out to the team. So it ensures that they are dealt with much more quickly. And we're also still in the throes of trying to appoint an apprentice into that team as well to provide further resilience.
Okay, Mrs Hack.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just one quick question again, following on from that. In terms of reporting overflowing bins, I know residents currently have to go either by services or to a member. Is there an easier way of reporting those? Do we have, I know many councils do have an app now where residents can report if they've got a problem with things or street cleansing. Do we have any such things, or are there any plans to explore that?
We don't at the moment. They could always report it via the complaints, whatever system on the website, and just say that the bin needs reporting. But it is something that we will look at to try and streamline the process. So if it's reported via the website on that customer comment form, it will then automatically go to the appropriate department. So that's what we're looking to do.
Okay, no further questions. We'll move on. Community and Wellbeing Leisure Services. That's Mr Gill again, is it not? I was
happy for any questions.
Yes, I'll ask a question regarding this hot chestnut about our providers saying the numbers have dropped because we're charging for car parking. Is there any evidence of that at all?
Thank you, Chair. The issue is that we don't have any information as to occupancy prior to the introduction of parking charges in January 22. Having said that, since January 22, the levels of occupancy across the Box Hill and Parklands car park has been relatively steady. There's been no sudden loss in volume. It's a difficult one because I think the SLM say to us that people have left because of car parking charges. We ask them to provide information to literally ask the question. When somebody surrendered their membership, why are you leaving? But the evidence that it relates to parking is not there. And likewise, the evidence to suggest that people are deterred from taking up membership because of car parking charges is also not there. Because when somebody's sitting in their bedroom at 10:30 at night thinking of joining the gym and going, looking at the membership, there is no way of knowing whether the reason that they've decided not to join the gym is because it doesn't offer what they want or the cost is too expensive, or it's the car parking. So you're trying to measure something that's not measurable. We're still in negotiations with the operator following on from the pandemic and the issues that have arisen. So this is an area that is constantly raised and will be addressed. And at some point, hopefully, there'll be a resolution as to the contract and the impact that car parking has or has not had on the business.
Okay, any further questions? Mrs Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that point, looking at the two graphs of Wixton and Oadby, Wixton numbers are going up whilst Oadby is going down. So if car parking was an issue, surely it would be the same across the two leisure centres. That analogy doesn't seem to work. To me, it looks like there's more competition in Oadby, and SLM are not keeping up with their competition in terms of prices. Another question, is Parkland function suite available to hire? I've had complaints from residents that they've been told that since the pandemic, it's not available for resident use.
Dealing with the first question, I agree with you. The impact in Oadby is in part due to the new gym, the Pure Gym on the A6 there, which not only provides free parking but also provides very competitive rates and is also owned 7 and offers a different package. And I think there's been some impact on parklands from that, whereas at Wigston, the numbers are increasing. With regard to the function suite, it is an issue, shall we say. You've raised this with me on a number of occasions, Councillor Hack, and you know that I've endeavoured to get a resolution. We are due to have a meeting shortly with the operators, and we will raise it again to see whether we can get some resolution to the issue.
Okay, no further questions? Youth engagement? Yours again, Mr. Gillespie?
It is mine.
Was there, all right, fair point. Was there health and well-being before that? Or?
Yeah.
Got a question on health.
Okay, come on then, ask your question on that one then.
Thank you, Chair. I get often contacted by walking groups who struggle to walk along the paths around new housing estates, and in my ward it's New Stoughton Park, and what's happening there is a lot of the hedges are overgrown onto the paths, and the walking groups and various people that are going past, they're just finding it difficult to get around. I was wondering, is there any way of holding the developers to account in terms of making sure that the hedges are trimmed back? And also, the second question is in regards to some of the grass verges. I understand that county is probably in charge of some of them, but are we in charge of some of the grass verges, in particular around the Stoughton Park? Because they seem to be overgrown.
In terms of the hedges, if they are designated footpaths, is the county matter. If they're not designated footpaths, then it's more than likely to be a highways matter. And again, that's enforceable by county. In terms of the grass verges, the vast majority of them will be county. And again, going back to the point that I made earlier with regard to the weather conditions in terms of the cemetery, we've had no mow May. And I think county have actually taken the opportunity not to mow the grass verges because they've been able to save a bit of money. So that's part of the issue. So hopefully now that no mow May has gone and we're into June, you might actually see the verges being cut. And I'm aware that county actually reduced their grass cutting cycle. Was it from 6 to 4 or?
Yes.
Yeah, so whereas county used to cut the verges 6 times a year, they again took a decision only to do them 4 times a year because of cost savings. And they are concentrating more on those junction areas where you come up to roundabouts and you've got, you know, it's blocking the vision. So I know that they're concentrating on that.
Let's come back.
Yeah, just thank you for the answer. Just going back to the hedges, if we wanted a developer to maintain their hedges, do we have to go through Oadby Wigston Council, Oadby County, to ask them or to put an enforcement order so that they actually maintain them? Who do we go through? Is it Oadby Wigston or is it county?
Well, once the developer has sold the plots off, then it's no longer the developer's responsibility. In the vast majority of cases, there'll be a Section 278 agreement and it will be transferred to county. It then becomes county's responsibility. If it's public open space, it will be transferred possibly to the council, this council. If it's not transferred to this council, there'll be a management company who's responsible for it. And if it's in somebody's garden, then it's the responsibility of the person whose garden it is. So there's a myriad of different people that may or may not be responsible. But in terms of highways and overgrowing onto footpaths, etc., my initial view that's a county function. It's not an untidy land function under 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act. It would be something on the Highways Act.
Okay, and Mr Bentley?
Thank you, Chair. Just a point regarding that. Grass verges, yes, they're normally under the highways. But the grass verges in front of my house actually get cut 12 times a year.
Yeah, you do them.
I do. I know a lot of residents don't like to do the county council's work, but the county council, like any council, are a bit low on resources. And they are normally quite accepting that residents get in touch with them and say, I am going to take over the maintenance of that grass verge in front of my house. And they say, yes, that's fine. But make sure you tell us when you stop maintaining it, we will have to take over. And I've been doing that for 10 years now. And it's lovely. 12 times a year.
Mr Gill says a lot of these new housing estates will be run by management companies now, so they're taking over the ownership of the maintenance of the facilities of the estate, and the residents will be paying an extra levy on their properties to actually facilitate that. And obviously it's going to give us lots of problems in the future, because residents say we pay our council tax, why not cutting the grass? Because it's by a management company, nothing to do with us. Good, same as the lights and same as the drains. It's going to be a major problem in the years to come. Anyway, youth engagement, anything there? No?
The only thing I can say on youth engagement is that we are currently in the process of working up a youth engagement strategy, which hopefully will be coming through later in the year. We have a youth activator working for us, currently working in South Wixon High School, where the activator is working with a Commonwealth boxing champion to run boxing sessions at the school for people that are having mental health issues. But that service will come to an end at the end of the school term because it's funded externally. And also we're looking at organising the Leicester Riders to come to Blavey Road Park in the summer months to undertake some activities with the children there. And those will be weekly sessions with the impact team, health team, officers and Leicestershire Police.
Okay, Mrs Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly on youth engagement. I'm not sure whether we engage with the schools, but I've heard there was a scheme regarding bike scheme. There's some funding available from the government to teach young kids and give some grants to the school, the bike riding lessons. And the word out there is that Oakley schools and Winston schools haven't been taking that up. Is there a possibility that we can ask our youth engagement worker if they want to engage with schools and make them aware of that funding that's available?
Certainly.
And get them to apply for that?
Yes, I can certainly raise that, Councillor Hack.
Thank you.
Okay, community safety. Any comments there at all? Added social behaviour? No? Okay. Right. Further comments on that then? Right, now we go down to Appendix 3, Customer Services, Stats. Mrs Hatton again.
Thank you, Chair. The report itself is quite detailed. We were asked previously in previous committees to provide some more information about customer services. So the report goes through all different areas, the different channels in, and gives you all the stats for that particular quarter. So happy to take any questions.
Mark.
Thank you, Chair. On page 37, number of calls in March. I know there's an increase in number of calls, but there is also increase in number of abandoned calls, and that seems to be quite high in terms of percentage. It's probably gone down, but it's still quite a lot of calls that have been abandoned. Do we know the reason for that?
Yeah, we do indeed. That's over the period that we are launching garden waste each year. So as we will try to utilise our resources as much as possible and minimise the absence during that period. We are impacted heavily in March by the people signing up and renewing their garden waste, and also council tax bills hitting at the same time. So whilst we do our best every year, we do drip, we do drop, our performance at that point. So the abandon will inevitably go up during that time. When you look at the average wait times itself, before people are abandoning, it is quite low. So because we answer calls quite quickly here, generally, which is great, it's great service. People are unwilling to wait for very long, which is understandable. So we do lose more calls when we have more calls coming through. But generally speaking, those people will call back or renew or go online and have their inquiry answered by email or another contact. But yes, it is down to that increase of call volume.
Chair, if I can come back.
Yes.
I understand that, and you mentioned it could be because of garden waste subscriptions. That is potential income for us. Do we have extra resources that we can put into that just for those 2 months to deal with increased volume of calls?
So we do utilise some of our part-time officers doing additional hours during that period. We have in the past, previously, where we had face-to-face inquiry service, we used to increase and have temporary officers during that period. But what we've found over the last few years is we're around that 50% mark of people doing it online now themselves. So we've used that as a cost saving really to save in terms of resourcing. So we don't have any additional staff, but we do increase hours during that period, and as I say, minimise leave, so that helps in terms of numbers. It is just for a short period. April, for example, goes back up to a much more normal level. May onwards, it's there. So it is really just the month of March that we accept our standard will go lower during that period.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you. Just a very quick one. At what point does it become an abandoned call? Because I know personally when I've phoned up during that period, the first announcement is if you're calling for garden waste, go online. So if I was calling for garden waste, heard that announcement, hung up, is that an abandoned call?
It is indeed. So people will abandon very early on during that. So it could be that they hear a message and they decide, we obviously do try to encourage people to do it online, so they're not waiting necessarily if they're able to. So it could be that. Also, it can be for a variety of things, baby crying, could be somebody walking in the room and then, they're at work and they shouldn't be on the phone. There's all sorts of different reasons that people abandon. But generally, if we're honest about it, people abandon because they're waiting too long and they're not prepared to wait longer. But people will call back or they will use another channel, particularly when it comes to applications. Because ultimately, if, for example, you're ringing because you want to claim the housing benefit or you want to renew your garden waste, if you want that service, you will call back at a quieter period. Our value rates vary, obviously, certain times of the day. Again, we try and maximise our staff to minimise those trends. But when you're increasing over 2,000 calls, it's inevitable it will go up. But yes, it is literally from the minute they're abandoned, so it could be a variety of reasons.
Thank you.
Okay. We want to Appendix 4. Annual complaints report. Is that Mrs. Hatton again?
It is. We'll be sitting with me tonight. So this is our biannual complaints report for our newer members. This is something that we introduced over a year ago to give more transparency to our complaints process. We've done a lot of work in improving our complaints process and trying to resolve more complaints at an early part in the process. The resolution is what we call that. But whilst we've improved the procedures and the policy behind it, we really want to make sure we're monitoring it closely so we can further improve. Complaints are inevitable, unfortunately. We will receive them with our human beings running the services, so we are going to make mistakes. Our processes sometimes aren't the best, and we do need to check things where. So the focus on it really is the lessons that we can learn from them. But hopefully members will find the report is very transparent and clear. It's got a lot of information in it, so if you'd like to ask any questions, depending on what service area the complaint relates to, or if it's a general question, one of us here will answer that.
Right, around the table, any questions at all? Oh, okay, all right. We'll move on. It's pleasing to see nothing went to the Ombudsman over the last 2 years.
Sorry, Chair, what was that?
Nothing went to the Ombudsman.
No, we did have a complaint in this particular 6-month period that did go, somebody took a complaint to the Ombudsman, but they decided that it wasn't a complaint they were willing to investigate because we haven't been at fault, and it was just the customer being unhappy with something that it wasn't fair to investigate.
That's fine, that's fine. It's nice to see there's nothing there. Okay, we'll move on then. Sorry, Mr. Bentley.
Comment, Chair.
Yeah.
No questions because the report tells us everything we need to know, and it's a very good report. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Even I can't find anything wrong with it.
Must be painful for you.
It is very painful, yes. Okay, one question we have got, no, we'd answered that one about the grave. Can't say anything else we need to, has anybody else got any comments to make on that report? No. Oh yes, on the housing one, there's tenants complaining about length of time. That's because the heating engineer was somewhat overworked, the company we employed, because a lot of breakdowns because it was very cold and they couldn't get around to all the customers in the timescale that was needed. They did the best to get the time allocated, but boilers being boilers, you don't always go quite according to plan. What you think you can get done quickly sometimes takes considerably longer. Mrs. Hack.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question regarding the car parks complaint, a trip over charging point. I refer back to the installation company. Has that been resolved? And is it the same installation company that deals with all the charging points in the borough?
Skill?
And is that just a problem, a one-off problem, or have they all been checked?
I think that was just a one-off problem. I mean, to be quite honest, it was the bumper thing is quite visual. I mean, it was literally, pretty bluntly, somebody not looking where they were going, to be quite honest. It was referred back to the company as they installed it. We've not received any further communication on regard to that matter, and we've had no further reports that any of the charging points are causing issues in any of the car parks.
Okay, thank you. Appendix 5 on page 56, Environment Working Group, a small agenda there. No doubt there'll be one to come to the next meeting after the committee meets. And then we have item number 6, which is the events calendar, which please take note of. And it's the Armed Forces flag raising. It says the 24th of June, but I assume it'll be done on the 23rd of June. The 24th of June is a Saturday. So I should imagine there'll be something here on the Friday.
We could certainly arrange that, Councillor.
It'd be nice if members could attend that. Mrs. Hack?
Chair, just a comment regarding, I know on our social media we put all the greetings out whenever there are different events that celebrated in the borough by different communities. And we'll make sure that all that happens according to this calendar, and whatever greeting needs to be sent out on social media, that happens. Thank you.
Okay. Last item on the agenda. So do we note all the reports we received this evening and all the comments that have been made? All happy with that? Please indicate.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the end of the meeting at 8:25, which is...
A record for you.
Well, it is a bit of record, yes, but no doubt that'll be a one-off.
I'm going to sort